How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another video. So as we're in the last week of October, I wanted to put out a video showing with you guys some of my favorite stories to read in the Halloween season. And some of these are just my own personal favorites. They might not be the most Halloween, the most horror, or ones that you think of right away, but these are ones that anytime we hit the spooky season, I love to go in and read every time. One that you might be shocked is not on here, given that it has Halloween in the name and I'm a huge Batman fan, is you will not see the Long Halloween on this list. While that is a great story and I love it, that's not one where it kind of goes over many holidays that I usually grab for the Halloween spooky season. So the ones we're going to go over today are in no particular order. It's not like it goes worst to best, favorite to least favorite. These are just some stories that I love, that I want to read in this season, that I wanted to share with you guys. So let's get into number one. Alright, so first off, I wanted to share American Vampire. So this right here is, again, Scott Snyder, and it started off with Rafael Albuquerque. And this first volume has a little bit of extra notoriety to it because it also had Stephen King. So I believe that while Scott Snyder did the main story, any of the backup featured in each issue was specifically written by Stephen King, as well as a foreword by Stephen King. And if you haven't read this before, and you actually like it and get into it, there's a few volumes now at this point. So there's plenty of reading. You're not going to have to worry about running out. But the thing I love about the series American Vampire is it is almost like an anthology where each volume is a different era, a different piece of history in time, and that it's kind of dealing with this style of vampires throughout history, the different stories, the different characters. You have some overlap that kind of carries through, but for the most part, it is just that if maybe volume 1 or 2 wasn't your thing, volume 3 might be. And actually, so my favorites to go back and read are number 1, because again, it is that more small scale horror, has Stephen King, the two playing off of each other works extremely well. But my second volume that I find myself grabbing more and more, especially in this holiday season, is actually volume 3 of American Vampire. And if I read you a little bit of insert just from inside the front cover, it'll pretty much sum up why I like this era almost more than the original. We have two lovers with a lie between them, caught in the middle of a war in the Pacific. Two vampire hunters searching for a cure in Nazi-occupied Romania. One bad vampire at heart of it all. So, I am a sucker for any time you take that Nazi war era and you tie in some kind of creature or supernatural element with it. Zombie Nazis are fantastic. Anybody wants to see zombies die. You got zombie Nazis. It is awesome. It's carnage candy. You can kill as many as you want. You never have to feel bad. But this does some amazing things with how it chooses to paint that picture and the setting and the story it chooses to tell within this volume. And throughout the different volumes too, you'll see that while Rafael Albuquerque is kind of like a staple for the artist, you will have some artists kind of filter in and out. And this one, we have Sean Murphy working with Scott Snyder, who they've done stories before. They were on The Wake Together. They've done things since then. But I absolutely love this volume. If you are into not quite human Nazis dying, getting their comeuppance, very much akin to the movie Overlord. If you guys haven't seen that, but with vampires, I highly recommend you check out at least this volume. But each volume, like I said, is their own era, their own flavor. So even if one doesn't grab you, the next one might a little bit more. But for me, 1 and 3 are my go-to volumes in the Halloween season of American Vampire. So next up on the list, I'm going to go over a series that's a little bit more fun. Something I discovered, I think, just a year or two ago that I'd never heard of. And it was actually more of an artwork grab. And that series is The Colonized. We have zombies versus aliens, and as you'll see in some later issues, zombies versus humans versus aliens. But I have originally grabbed this book because, and I say, we can get some of that artwork going without that glare right there, because I absolutely loved the artwork style that it had on it. And each issue is just absolutely beautiful and unique. I hadn't really seen a lot of artwork on a lot of books like it, and especially for the horror genre, the artist on this one, it just grabs your eye on every issue. There's so much going on too on the detail of every issue that we have on here. So you have Ryle, Moss, and photos on each issue. So just absolutely beautiful books right there. And like I said, if you are into zombies, aliens, this has everything. And the whole thing is only 4 issues. So the ones I just showed were the main covers that initially grabbed my eye. But when I started looking into it, I had to grab the variant covers for each one as well. So here you have this beautiful variant cover of issue number 1. Just spectacular, kind of Walking Dead with the aliens right there. Variant cover for issue 2. And like I said, this series is just fun. It's almost like, if you've ever seen the movie Tucker and Dale versus Evil, that is kind of the vibes that this story is on, where it definitely has some gore, the artwork is amazing, but it's just a more fun horror comedy read. And this is one of my absolute favorite covers right here. This is the one that actually made me go back and find it, is they released a trade paperback that had this as its main cover, and I went back and looked at the series and tracked all of these down. So in total, this gets 4 issues for the story if you want the whole shebang, 8 issues if you're going to include the variant covers, but except it is kind of just, the story isn't deep, it's not going to be, like I said, it's just a fast, fun read of, not only do you have a zombie outbreak going on, but you also have this alien invasion going on. Most of it you are dealing with the POV of the aliens themselves and them dealing with this, them encountering this. So it's also not your typical, the human perspective and how we perceive it. It is more of the aliens already had their own thing going on. And now on top of trying to conquer the humans, you also have this zombie outbreak that's just making everything that much more difficult. So this is just always a fun, awesome read that I like to go back to in the Halloween season just to keep things light after one of the more serious reads. So that's why my number 2 pick is The Colonized, Zombies vs. Aliens. So now that we have those 2 out of the way, we're going to kick it over to DC, and my next pick is going to be Batman the Black Mirror. So like I said, that's why this, I only have the Absolute Edition of this, and of course the iconic Joker Jock cover that we have right there that takes up the whole shebang. So this book, more than The Long Halloween, because like I said, The Long Halloween, well, is a classic. I think it more of a classic detective story. A lot of the artwork and the imagery that you see from it, because I play into the pumpkin theme, does tie into Halloween very well. But it's called The Long Halloween for a reason. It spans over a huge span of time. There's many holidays that go by. You have the holiday killer in that story. So for me, well, I love that one. Specifically for more horror in Halloween, I find myself going for The Black Mirror. And so at first, I was a little skeptical on this one, because I am very much, Bruce Wayne is my Batman. And so if you don't know, in this story, Dick Grayson is Batman. So while I love Dick Grayson as Robin at Nightwing, I didn't really care to see him in Batman. But would I be wrong? Because little old me, who had gotten into the New 52 Batman, saw and loved everything Scott Snyder did, then I started working backwards. And this is again by Scott Snyder. So this is when, before he was given the main Batman title and he was put on Detective Comics. So I went back and I reread this. I loved it so much, obviously, that I had to get the very expensive hardcover Absolute Edition. Has a beautiful hardcover book in the cardboard case right there. And this story, not only did it make me fall in love with Dick Grayson as Batman and everything he had to do, but the horror aspects that Scott Snyder wove throughout the story, while this detective mystery at the same time, very much just as much a detective as Bruce was, very much came up with villains that were foils to everything that made Dick Grayson so good, and making it what would the opposite of that be, as well as what the poor Gordon family has to endure in these stories right here. It very much teeters that line too, of it plays with, you're thinking certain things and you're kind of judging certain things, and then right when you're pretty sure this is what's happening, it pulls off to the left just enough where now you're wondering, is it all in your head? Are you a little crazy right now? Or is this actually a little weird? What's going on? Is it actually like there's some red flags with what I'm seeing with this character right now? So if you haven't ever, no idea of it, I'm not going to get too specific, but there very much is some huge horror elements in here, but especially what the Gordon family has to endure. Everything with the Dick Grayson, while not overly fantastical, with the Gordon family, it is very much a very real and a very grounded horror that they have to deal with in this story that is very personal and hits very close to home. So anytime I think of an actual horror story for Batman, I think of this more than I do any other. Because you have Long Halloween, which, has that vibe great, but I wouldn't say outright horror. You have Batman Death of the Family, which, with some of the things that happen in the imagery, that does lean into, it's almost like if Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Jeepers Creepers had a baby, is how I would describe that. But for some reason, it is just how real and raw a lot of these stories and a lot of the villains that you have in this story that you encounter that just make it a little bit more of that scary vibe for me, where if I want something that I believe is horror, it's gonna leave me a little bit more shook for the season, I always reach for Batman Black Mirror. So I'm looking to show off one more series today. I'm going to say, well, keep it nice, short, keep it light, but that last series is Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. So this, again, is very much akin to what I had said with the colonized plants, or not plants, I was going to say Plants versus Zombies, Aliens versus Zombies, where you have the gore and the obvious horror, where you're dealing with horror icons in this story, but it is so gratuitous and a very slasher-esque, very much in the vein of the movies it was off of, that it's not overly scary. It's more ridiculous in what you're having. And like I said, you have Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and you have Ash from Evil Dead. It is wacky, it's ridiculous, it's violent, and it's fantastic. So this is another great one where you want just straight horror slasher, but you want it to be a little bit more on like the lighter gore side, as much, not very much like really gonna creep you out. It's just a fun slasher a long way go. And there's only 6 issues in this series as well, but each issue is absolutely fantastic. And these can actually be pretty tough. If you look for the individual issues, these can actually be pretty tough to find in nicer grade, especially for the whole series. But if you can, they are absolutely worth it. The covers are gorgeous. Their use of color is amazing. You always have that red going with Freddy, with that kind of swamp, lake water going with Jason Voorhees in all the covers. Poor Ash is just kind of in the middle for most of these ones, but absolutely gorgeous artwork, where anytime you have something that's like this, where it's lighter, fun, slasher, gore, you always want an artist that can do that gore justice. And I believe that Jason Craig, who I know he's on here, but I forget if he's the one that does the actual covers for the series, but whoever it was on, if it is not him, absolutely knocked these out of the park. This Jason mask is probably one of my favorites right now, with Ash and Freddy in the face. But same thing, only 6 issues. I'm sure you can find it somewhere collected, but if you want to track them down, great. If you want to track them down in higher grade, that is a little bit more difficult. But absolutely fun, bonkers series, just ridiculous. And I think they've done some more kind of team-ups and matchups since then, but as far as I know, this is the first one that they did with it. So I actually got these in a claim sale not too long ago. I forget if it was from Mint Hunter Comics or if it was from Future Past Vintage Collectibles. It might have been Mint Hunter Comics, so I got the whole batch as a bundle, there we go, a while ago. So that is all we have for today. Just 4 awesome, fun series. We're in the last week of October. Halloween is right around the corner. But if you're looking for something to read that you haven't yet, I highly recommend Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, American Vampire, The Black Mirror, and The Colonized, Aliens versus Zombies. So hopefully you guys enjoy checking out some of these ones. I hope you guys look into them. Let me know what you think. If you have read them, Like I said, I'm pretty sure that Black Mirror, maybe American Vampire will be higher up on that list. But any that you guys have already taken a crack at, let me know what you thought in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching.